In this episode, we speak with Jerome Ternynck, the founder and CEO of SmartRecruiters, a next-generation platform that serves as the hiring operating system for 4,000 customers like Bosch, LinkedIn, Skechers, and Visa. The company is backed by Mayfield, Salesforce, and Insight. Jerome is an entrepreneur with a strong interest in recruiting and technology. His overall goal is to bring the economy to its full potential by removing friction in the labor market and eradicating unemployment. Jerome has also previously founded MrTed, Talent Technology, and Accord Group. I am your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to subscribe.
RJ Lumba is the executive chairman of Market Insight Media and the managing partner of GrowthCap. He is the host of Great Entrepreneurs, a podcast for driven entrepreneurs and business owners. Our podcast covers all topics related to the entrepreneurial journey, from ideation to execution to optimization and to reaping the rewards of a well-run business. In the minutes ahead, we'll share with you unique insights and tactics from some of today's most accomplished and inspiring entrepreneurs.
Jerome, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's a delight to be with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, RJ.
So, a lot has been happening in the whole HR software space. SmartRecruiters is a well-known company. It's raised a lot of money. For the benefit of our audience, can you tell us about what the company does and how its solutions are top of the market?
Yeah, absolutely. So SmartRecruiters, in so many words, we make hiring easy. We're a talent acquisition suite that helps large enterprises achieve hiring success, which is the ability to attract, select, and hire amazing talent on demand. And we currently serve about 1,000 enterprises around the world, mostly big enterprises like think Domino's or LinkedIn or Visa or that kind of company. And we serve them in over 100 countries. We have 500 people in the company. And interestingly, we process almost 100 million candidates a year these days. So there's a lot of volume, a lot of traffic that's happening on the platform. And frankly, a lot of movements on the job market.
One thing I noticed about your background is that you've been involved in the human capital space and recruiting space for a long time. Perhaps you were engaging with it on a more traditional basis. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started in recruiting probably by chance. I mean, I was French born and raised, and then I started to work for a consulting company. After 90 days, I resigned. I was like, no, this is not for me. I'm going to create my own business. And so I moved to Prague back when it was still Czechoslovakia. And the first thing I heard there was, my God, it's so hard to hire good people. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I could do a recruitment agency. I was 23. I didn't speak a word of Czech, but I guess those were the times. And I got into recruiting. And fast forward a couple of years, I ended up doing one of the first applicant tracking systems in 2000. And I did that for 10 years. And the first generation of recruiting software really didn't do justice to the process, to candidates. It largely moved from paper resumes to online resumes. It automated, it made everything anonymous. I mean, just go to the website of any company today that's using a big ATS and you're like, oh, you want to pull your hair off. And so in 2010, when I sold that company, I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? Am I going to go rest on the beach or start again? And I figured I was not done, right? I think ATSs have done a lot of things, but they certainly have not made hiring easy. And that's when I moved to San Francisco to start SmartRecruiters. And our simple perspective here is there's got to be a better way to hire people. There's got to be a better way to find jobs. Let's try and make hiring easy and job search easy. And that was the genesis of SmartRecruiters, actually.
And is there a difference between the type of candidates you were recruiting back in your Czech days versus, what the platform does? It sounds like the platform is applicable to a lot of different kinds of recruiting projects.
Yeah, I think a talent acquisition suite really serves to manage recruiting, right? So when we sign a customer, we're going to be managing all of their hires, all of their jobs, and all of the candidates, internal candidates, employees, and external candidates across all of their functions. And the setup, the processes will vary. So obviously, if you're hiring, a new CEO, that's not happening with the same process than if you need to hire 1,500 new graduates or shift workers in retail. So processes vary, but what stays constant is at the end of the day, there's a hiring manager needs to hire somebody, and that person needs to find a job, and we're going to get them together and manage that process.
Which part of the recruiting process is SmartRecruiters better at than the other platforms out there?
We looked at that quite a bit as we started to build like what really makes a difference. And we landed on three key pillars to achieve hiring success. The first one is candidate experience. If you want to be able to attract and engage amazing talent, you have to market to them. And that experience for candidates has to be amazing. Long forms, clunky applications, black holes you never hear back, that doesn't work. So candidate experience is one of our strong pillars. The second is hiring manager engagement. Traditionally, recruiting software ATSs have left the hiring managers away because they're mostly, deep tech or deep application for recruiters. But actually, who is hiring? It's the hiring manager. So you have to be able to bring the hiring manager and offer real service and real engagement so that the hiring manager is in control of their hires. They get supported by recruiters. They engage with candidates. So hiring manager engagement is our second secret sauce. And the third is recruiter and recruiter productivity. When you're a recruiter, it's really hard these days. You use a lot of different systems. You have thousands of candidates applying to your jobs. You're in a hurry. You're usually working way too many jobs or way too many requisitions. So you have to move fast. So recruiter productivity is the third pillar. And with these three things, so if you have good candidate experience, engaged managers, and productive recruiters, then you have the recipe for hiring success.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell us a little bit about how the company has been scaling, the type of growth you've been seeing over the past few years?
I think scaling is an interesting term, right? It's like when you start a company, at what point do you think you are ready to scale? And for me as a founder, scaling really means you're replicating at a higher pace and with a higher efficiency, a pattern of success that you have actually identified, right? And if you use that definition of scaling, then I would say it probably took us the first 5 or 6 years before we were able to scale. And the reason is everybody needs to hire. And so when we came to market with a pretty shiny new recruiting software, we had a lot of interest. We had a lot of companies actually starting to use SmartRecruiters, buying it. And to a certain extent, too many false positive, right? Like, are we good for small companies, for big companies, for high volume retail, for governments, for high tech companies, for banks, for in which country? So when everybody wants to buy your software, you could say it's a good problem to have, but actually it requires a lot of discipline to say, okay, these are the type of companies we're going to focus on. It's a little bit like, you open a restaurant, you're a good chef, and in the first months, you got all the foodies in the area come and they give you great feedback. Oh, we love your cooking. And you're like, oh, I'm successful. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're just a good chef, but you don't have a restaurant, and you certainly don't have a recipe for a Big Mac that you can open 10,000 restaurants with. And that I think is really the heart of scaling a business, is being able to identify what are the patterns of success that you can scale efficiently.
So which market then did you hone in on first?
Yeah, we honed in on, I'll call it large enterprises. So 5 to 25,000 employees. Those are enterprises that have enough resources to truly make use of the full capacity and capabilities of our platform. They have the size to have a proper talent acquisition team who knows what they want and can truly leverage our platform. They take longer sales cycle. They take more education, but it fits us well. We are really bringing expertise into the market. And the long sales cycle are rewarded by very good gross retention. So we're at like 95% gross retention. Average contract is like 3 years. So this is our market. This is our core. We actually deliver hiring success to large enterprises.
Mm-hmm. And how long does it take generally from, I guess, the moment a large enterprise finds out about you to the time when they engage and start using your platform?
It usually takes about 6 months from the time that an organization says, hey, we probably need a new recruitment system, and the time when they sign a contract with a vendor. And I wouldn't want to compress that. I wouldn't advise an enterprise to compress that. I think it's important to go through the steps. This is an important decision, and it's a core system. It's a core platform. And so once you make up your mind and you implement it, you're going to be with that vendor for the next 5-10 years or so. So it's worth the 6 months to think about it. And we do a lot to help our buyers make their decision for the right reasons, right? So we qualify the customers we engage with, and we make a lot of resources available to them so that they have the highest chance of success.
That's very interesting the way you phrased it. You phrased it from being in their shoes and not wanting to rush that process because you want to make sure they feel comfortable with the decision. Have you always approached business that way as an entrepreneur, always putting yourself in the buyer's shoes?
I guess maybe some of it is experience, but putting yourself in the buyer's shoes is incredibly important, especially in this market. You say, well, the market's noisy. It's a marketing challenge for you as a vendor. I'm like, yeah, but imagine you're a buyer. Being a buyer in a noisy market is like deafening, right? So if you can provide your buyers with a signal, if you can provide them with peers, references, a methodology, you actually help them make sense of the market. You help them see the signals through the noise and end up making a better buying decision. Obviously, you hope that the buying decision is going to go your way, but the education, the support, and the help is important here.
Excellent. Going back to the earlier days before you scaled or as you were scaling, did you start off with one solution or did you have the kind of 3 areas that you spoke of earlier?
Yeah, we had an interesting start. We started with a very simple solution, which allowed companies to sign up for free, post a job, get some candidates, and decide who they would hire. And that gave us that free alpha version, if you want, gave us a lot of usage and a lot of data and allowed us then to optimize on where we were seeing the most interest from buyers, what features they were asking for. And it's almost the first 3 years. It took us 3 years plus until we said, all right, now there's a paywall. We know what features you want to buy. We know what solution you need. And now there's an enterprise version. You can still use the free version if you want, but now there's an enterprise version, and that's why you want to buy it.
So you started off with, I guess, the most simplistic tool within the whole HR sphere, and that was by design.
Yes. Yeah, it was by design because the platform, the talent acquisition suite, does so many features. Like literally, by nowadays, we receive an RFP from a customer. It has like 900 questions. It's a very, very wide platform. So there's no way you can build this from the ground up, with your eyes blinded. I had done a recruitment software before, so I had an idea what to do, but I think there's nothing beats market feedback. So we cut it into a very tiny increment, put it out on the market, and let people decide, what makes sense and what's interesting and what's not.
So you're a serial entrepreneur. I'm curious if you think that entrepreneurs are born or made.
I think they are made. I don't believe in born that much. I think you can change your destiny. I don't think that, fate is something that you just have to accept and it's too bad. So I think entrepreneurs are made. And I think people who decide to go down the founder route first have my admiration. I admire founders, all of them, like big and small, tech or not tech, but it's a decision you make. It's a commitment you make. I'd say don't start unless you're ready to struggle and actually enjoy the struggle, because that's there. But equally, don't let anyone tell you are not good enough, because you're a founder and you decide what good looks like. And you can go and prove everybody wrong.
Can you tell us about the toughest time you had? It could be with this company or it could be with your prior companies, but what was the most challenging experience you've had as an entrepreneur?
I would say the COVID blackout. Like when COVID shutdown came in, the whole world was in a shock, but we sell recruiting software. Like all companies started to make large amounts of employees redundant. And the first one was recruiters. Like all the recruiters, frankly, got fired. And at that time, I was like, okay, this is an interesting situation. Like, what do we do? And what we ended up doing here was we went back to our purpose. And our purpose is pretty simple. We help people find jobs, right? This is as simple as it gets. And I remember we had a big town hall, the whole company, and we said, okay, well, We don't know what the future is going to be, but what we do know is what we stand for. And we stand for helping people find jobs. And hundreds of millions of people have actually just been fired. So I suppose our purpose just became even more important. And as a result, we ignited a really positive energy on the market. And we started to make certification courses and trainings free of charge for all recruiters that were on the bench. We created a job boards to help recruiters find new jobs at companies that were still hiring. And then we came to the market and we said to companies, you know what? Actually, if you're not hiring, now is the perfect time to change your recruiting system. And it worked. I remember H&M, the big fashion brand, 165,000 employees called us and say, you know what? You're right. All the shops are closed. Now is the perfect time. Let's go. And the net effect of that was that in 2020, we had bookings that were 70% higher than the previous year, like sales, new bookings, 70% increase year over year, despite 1 quarter of almost no sales during COVID, and with the same team. So we exited that COVID time, with our head high, and by staying true to our purpose. And for me, this is really a lesson I've learned. It's like, go back to your values, go back to your principles. And this is where your answer lies when times are tough.
What's the best piece of advice that you've ever been given or you've kind of uncovered yourself as you were going through your journey?
A lot of my influence has come from people who are underprivileged and achieve and succeed in the face of adversity. And I learned a lot from the inmates at Pelican Bay. Pelican Bay is a high security prison in the west of the United States in California. And I go there to coach inmates, but actually they coach me. The level of resilience, of forgiveness, the self-love that lives deep in the trauma and in one of the harshest environments you can think of in the US, I learned that actually you decide what impact events have on you. You are in charge, right? So between what happens to you and how you feel about it, there is a decision that you make to feel bad, to feel good, to feel neutral, to feel empowered. And I think that there's a lot of good lessons here. You're in charge. And that's what I was saying earlier about creating businesses. You decide what good looks like. Actually, you decide how you feel.
Well, I was going to close with a question about a charity cause or other endeavor that you're passionate about. I think you already told us about that. So maybe what we could do is end on you telling us about your book.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I wrote a book called Hiring Success, and it's a book for CEOs on how CEOs can attract and hire amazing talent. And it's very interesting because every CEO you speak to is like, yeah, hiring top talent is my number one problem. And then they pass it to recruiters and they don't give them any resources. And recruiters are measured by time to fill and cost per hire, faster and cheaper. So there's a complete chasm, I would say, between executive expectations, who understand that having the best people on your team is kind of the only thing that matters, and the way that it's implemented in companies. And I wanted to bridge that gap. And it's almost a plea for executives to actually understand how recruiting works and what can you do to hire amazing talent on your team and win as a result.
Fantastic. Well, Jerome, I want to thank you for taking the time. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you very much for having me.